Hello and welcome to Redbird Mathematics. The purpose of today's webinar is to offer a high-level overview of Redbird to educators that are brand new to the course. Now let's take a look at the goals of today's webinar. Today we are going to learn what is Redbird Mathematics? Where did it come from? How does it work? What does Redbird look like as a student? What does Redbird look like as a teacher? And finally, how can Redbird be implemented in your classrooms? Now let's take a look at Redbird in action. This video will provide an overview of the various and engaging elements of Redbird Math. Then we'll take a deeper dive and look at each of the components.
From day one, a student using Redbird Mathematics experiences an adaptive digital curriculum that uniquely combines rigorous instruction and practice with digital STEM project-based learning. She typically begins with a course placement activity, a series of items to assess what she already knows that places her at an appropriate unit to begin the course. Each unit starts with a video to introduce the STEM theme and preview the unit's math topics. Next up is the Show What You Know, a brief series of items to further assess how familiar she is with the unit's math content. Depending on the results, she'll receive instruction or move straight to item sets. In instruction, she'll experience short videos, digital manipulatives, direct instruction, and guided practice to help her learn and understand the material. After completing the lesson's instruction, she moves to the lesson's item sets to demonstrate proficiency. Here, she can answer correctly to move forward, or make use of the program's instructional supports, including a link to the lesson's instruction, on-demand help, hints revealed after a first incorrect attempt, and detailed feedback after a second. As she continues working through item sets to demonstrate proficiency, she moves through the lessons in the unit, sometimes unlocking games that reinforce mathematical understanding. Some units also have STEM projects, challenging her to use a digital tool to solve an authentic, real-world problem in the unit's theme. More games for skill reinforcement are available from the Unit Pathway screen, and she can also view her progress. The progress report evolves over time and shows the unique pathway taken through the curriculum, including whether she received items or instruction and answered correctly or incorrectly. Clicking a component will launch a replay of her activity, providing an opportunity for self-directed assessment and improvement.
I'm going to hand off this portion of the presentation to my colleague Alan Aguilar, who is going to discuss some of Redbird's features as well as Redbird's unique learning model.
Welcome to our introduction on Redbird Mathematics. My name is Alan. I am excited to talk to you about Redbird Math and how that's going to help your school. I'm going to first show you a little bit of some of the features that Redbird has to offer. Then we'll talk about the learning model for Redbird and how Redbird adapts. So a few things about Redbird. We are web-based. We're a K-7 adaptive math program. We can complement any core mathematics program, and Redbird addresses critical foundations for algebra readiness. We have personalized learning backed by decades of research at Stanford University. So our roots, our Redbird roots, begin all the way as far back as more than 25 years ago at Stanford University, led by Dr. Patrick Suppies at the time. Redbird has also been proven effective to all learners. And the one great thing about Redbird that makes us unique, much more unique than any other program, is that it includes a STEM component. So we are one of the few, if not the only program that actually has a STEM component embedded within the program. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what this STEM component is in just a bit. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our learning model, how Redbird works and what students would actually work on while they experience Redbird. So Redbird was designed on this framework, this learning process for digital natives. We understand that a lot of our kids, our younger generation, they grow up with technology, they understand it, they love it, they use it, it's natural to them. So we wanted to create something that is as engaging to our students, that allows them to continuously learn without getting bored and really continuing to get motivated. And at any time through Redbird, a student would go through one of these three stages that you see on my screen. They'll either go through the understand phase, which is where a student is receiving instruction. After that, they will go through an apply phase, which is now where a student applies what they've learned in the understand stage. And then they would move on to the create stage. And this phase is the one where the STEM component comes into play. The create section is where students get to work on a STEM project. And what they'll do is one of three things. They'll either do some type of designing, some type of coding, or some type of simulation. And I'll give you some examples of what this might look like in just a bit. So this is what our learning model is, and what I would like to do now is talk about each of these components and what these look like, what they do, and how the students would experience this. So the first component I want to show you is actually a video. It's an introductory video that a student, in this example in 4th grade, would encounter. So after the student completes their course placement activity, because in the beginning they do take a diagnostic and assessment so that Redbird knows where the student belongs and what material, what curriculum should be assigned to that student. When a student begins a unit, a student would have the ability to watch an introductory video. So I want to actually show you what this looks like.
Math is everywhere, the whole world, in your community, and that what you need it for business, in your career, every day and every year. There is a lot of work that goes into recording music. Before the singer even starts singing, an audio engineer has to make sure that the sound will be recorded properly. Audio engineers set up equipment to record music. They make sure the volumes of the beats, instruments, and singer's voice are all balanced. Next, the audio engineer records the instruments. Then the singer sings the vocals. Finally, the audio engineer is responsible for editing and improving the song. Audio engineers use equivalent fractions to work with time. They compare the volumes of different parts of a song, and they calculate the fraction of time that singers are on a specific track. In this unit, you will learn about equivalent fractions. You will multiply and divide to find equivalent fractions. You will compare fractions. Then, you will use what you have learned about equivalent fractions to solve problems about recording a song.
So as you can see, this video, the purpose of it is to not only engage students, to try to get them to relate to something they'd be interested on, but also to introduce the objectives of the lessons and to also make that connection between using math and the real world. So it also introduces the STEM theme, but there's introductory videos at the beginning of every one of our units. Afterwards, a student would then begin to go through Redbird and would work on, for example, the first stage, which is the understand section. While a student is working in the understand section, there'll be a few tutorials that a student would work on. There'll be some guided practice, and there'll be some digital manipulatives that students can use to try to solve problems. So this is a stage where Redbird understands that the student is learning the material. They get to use the digital tools, just like you see here with the ruler and the number line on your screen. And the purpose of this is for the student to be very comfortable in understanding this material before trying to practice it on his or her own. Once the student completes the understand phase, the student will then move on to the apply phase. Here's now where the student gets to practice what they've learned. As students maybe begin to struggle, they'll be able to access helps and hints throughout the course. Students would still get some guidance. There'll be some digital tools, some digital manipulatives that students can use as well. And there'll also be the opportunity for students to unlock games, just like the one you see on my screen here. In the apply phase in stage 2, this is also now where Redbird begins to adapt. So Redbird doesn't adapt yet in the understand phase because it understands that the students are learning a topic. It's not until the student begins to work on the apply phase where a student now, depending on the questions, will be moved through our curriculum, and Redbird will be adapting and personalizing the experience as the student continues to work on the apply stage. Once the student completes the apply stage, a student would then move on to a STEM project. Now, a few things about the STEM projects. We do not have STEM projects for students that are in kinder and first grade. So our STEM projects do begin at second grade, and on average, each grade level has about 3 or 4 STEM projects throughout our curriculum. In other words, for our third grade level curriculum, a student would encounter most likely 3 or 4 STEM projects to do. And again, the student would do some type of designing, coding, or simulation. When a student begins a STEM project, they would have to solve a real-world problem. In this case, this is a simulation pertaining to a hurricane, and a student would start off the STEM project by watching 2 videos. One of them would be an introductory video that would explain to the student what the students will be learning and what they'll be doing as well, and how they're going to apply what they've so far learned in the curriculum with this project. The second video is actually a STEM professional being interviewed or explaining to the student what they do in their careers, such as what you see on my screen currently. They'll also try to make that connection between using math and their everyday work. And then the student would then work on a project. Here's one example with the little guy here exercising. That's an example of a coding project. And here's an example of designing a rocket that a student would encounter. So our goal for these STEM projects is not only to expose our students to some of these really cool STEM careers, but to continue to make that connection between using mathematics and the real world as well. So this is our learning model. This is how Redbird functions, and it's very simple. At any time, a teacher can find out where in this learning model a student is working on.
Now that we've had a chance to learn about the Redbird learning model, let's take a look at the course placement activity. The course placement activity will be the first experience for most students in Redbird. In grades 1 through 7, all students will begin by taking this short assessment. Kindergarten students are set up by default to start off just at the very beginning of kindergarten with the first unit and the first lesson. This short assessment will typically take a student 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes at the most to complete. Students are then placed either at the beginning or middle of a grade level K through 7. Teachers may monitor where the students are placed from their teacher account in Redbird Learning Center and may manually adjust a student's placement at any time. They may also reset the course placement if they feel like the student maybe didn't give it their best effort, or maybe there were other variables involved where having the student take the course placement activity again is the best option. Just as a side note, the course placement activity is presented to the students as the kickoff challenge, but on the teacher's reports it is still referred to as the course placement activity. Now let's take a look at what a course placement activity looks like and how a student is placed. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at an actual course placement activity. It tells a student, welcome to your course. Let's start with some kickoff challenges. Take your time with these items. They will help us choose your starting point in the course. So we'll hit start. Now the first question is going to be a question from the middle to end of kindergarten. So let your students know, especially your older students, that it's going to be relatively easy up front, but it will get progressively harder as they're answering items correct. So the first one here, and notice also the text-to-speech. So if you do have a first grader that's a struggling reader, the text-to-speech is always available in Redbird wherever there is text on the screen. So we'll go ahead and we will answer this one correctly. And once they hit correct, they'll have to hit the arrow again to move on to the next item. So we answered the kindergarten question correctly. So the worst placement that we can receive right now is the beginning of first grade. And this question is a first grade question. And we will answer it correctly. So now we've answered a kindergarten and a first grade. We're moving on to second. So the lowest we can be placed now is the beginning of second grade. So we will answer this one incorrect so you can see what it looks like. So when we miss it, just like every other part of Redbird, we're given the question mark hint that we can click on, which gives us a hint here. And notice the orange, the blue circle with the white question mark over here bounced up and down and turned orange, just to remind the student that it's here. And it's either an additional hint or instruction on how to answer the problem, or sometimes it might actually be a model. It might model the problem for them. Right, so you can see here we missed it again, so it gives us the correct answer in the circle, and in the box, and it puts our incorrect answer in the circle. In this case, the student would have seen that they added instead of subtracted when they needed to, and in the bottom the feedback tells them as much. So even though we missed one, the program is going to give us another opportunity to answer a second grade question. Once again, because we answered the kindergarten and first grade correct earlier on first attempts, the lowest that we can be placed is the beginning of kindergarten. But let's go ahead and attempt another second grade question here. This one, let's answer this one correct. Is that correct? We'll click on it here. All right, so in this next one, so we answered that second grade question correct, but because we missed it the first time, the program is going to essentially give us another second grade question just to make sure we understand before we move on to third grade. All right, so we'll answer that one correct, and now we should be moved on to a third grade question. And we'll
1, 3,
miss this.
6,
And we get our feedback. And now it's going to give us another opportunity here to answer a third grade question. All right, we'll miss this one and see what that gives, see what happens to us here. All right, we're giving our feedback, and now we have received our placement. So at any point, if the students miss 2 out of 3, the program will place them. So you can see where it'd be it could be a very short assessment if a student gets on and doesn't take it serious. Now, one way that you could monitor where the student was placed was to have, if you're walking around the room, have them raise their hand when they get to this point, when they finish the kickoff challenge, because when they hit next, it will launch their first unit homepage, where you can then come over here to, there's 2 different ways. You can click on the icon in the top left-hand corner, which will take you to the unit pathway screen, and we can see here that the student was placed at the beginning of third grade. And that'll get us back here, and you can also see from the student snapshot report, which is accessible through their View My Progress. And we can see here the student is starting off there at the beginning of third grade. And we will discuss how to make an adjustment from Redbird Learning Center and your teacher account once we get to the teacher experience, but I at least wanted to show you a quick way how you can monitor where they're placed immediately, even if you're not in front of your computer in your teacher account. If you're near the student and they finish, they can quickly show you, where they were placed, and then they could go back and hit start and move right into their show what you know, the short assessment at the beginning of the first unit. And that is pretty much the course placement activity. Okay, now that we've discussed the course placement activity and where students will be placed, now let's take a look at the structure of each Redbird unit. They are set up the same at each unit. There are 7, by the way, there are 7 of these units at each grade level in K through 7. The first thing that students will experience when they go into when they are placed after the course placement activity is a a short video, usually about a minute and a half long, introducing the STEM theme and the mathematics, the concepts of the unit. The students may review or re-watch the video at any time. This will not appear in the student snapshot report, but the video doesn't change until they actually move on to the next unit. After watching the unit intro video, students will then proceed to a brief assessment called the Show What You Know assessment to determine their level of proficiency in the material that is going to be presented in the unit. And what we're really trying to do here is identify those high flyers who already have a high level of proficiency on the concepts. As you can see that it splits off here. If they were to get all 3 items in the Show What You Know correct, they will actually skip instruction and move straight into working on the item sets, the problems. Whereas if they miss any part of the Show What You Know, even one of the items, they will start off on the regular track of Redbird, where they will have to go through the first instructional lesson, which typically is 5 to 10 minutes, and then whichever way they go, whether they get all 3 items correct or they miss one part, the program is going to adapt from that point on. So if you have a student who maybe is a high flyer but misses one of these items, and they do have to go through the first instructional lesson, but once they get into working on the problems and they start showing a high level proficiency, they will see less instruction and less practice, and they will move through much quicker. It works the other way as well. If you had a student, maybe they got all 3 items correct, they start off in the accelerated mode, but maybe a few lessons down the road, they start to struggle or miss a few problems in a row, the program will say, okay, let's tap the brakes here and let's start presenting you with the instruction again and some expanded practice until you show us high level proficiency again, which at that point will once again accelerate you. So hope that made sense. So they'll go through the instruction and all the lessons, and the number of lessons vary in each unit, but there are 44 lessons total at each grade level. It just varies how they're split up amongst the units. So once they do complete all of the instruction and all of the items in the lessons and they get to the end of the unit, there's always going to be a concluding challenge. I always think of the Show What You Know and the concluding challenge as bookends to the unit. It is also a multi-part item similar to the Show What You Know. Both of them will take the students about 5 or 10 minutes to complete. Once they complete it, in grade levels kindergarten and first, and in about half of the other units for the other grade levels, this would be the end. They would go on to the next unit at this point. But starting at grade level 2, in at least 3 of the 7 units, there will be a STEM project. So one of the projects that Alan discussed earlier will be presented to the students at this point. So they'll always have the concluding challenge, which also has a STEM theme, and it wraps everything up in the unit. And then starting at grade level 2 in those select units, they'll also work on one of the project-based learning STEM projects. Now let's take a look at a short video about the adaptive motion engine of Redbird. I think this does a great job of explaining how a student's pathway is dictated based on their patterns of responses and how the program responds to the student.
The adaptive motion engine that drives student progress through Redbird Mathematics consists of 3 key elements: responsive instructional items, expandable item sets, and changes in the learning pathway. Together, these elements result in on-level, below-level, and accelerated student motion, all from one single program. So how does it work? The accelerated learning pathway occurs when a student is reviewing material she already knows, answering each item correctly. Her learning pathway is shortened, and she is accelerated along to her zone of proximal development. When she is in her zone of proximal development, additional support unfolds, including on-demand help and in-depth instruction, hints and feedback triggered by incorrect responses, and the opportunity to try another item. If she is not solving items correctly, the item set expands to provide more practice with similar problems. If she continues to struggle, she'll receive expanded instruction to develop understanding before moving to the next item set. If she still does not demonstrate proficiency, an additional instruction is presented, covering the same topic but in a different way. If she still continues to struggle after multiple forms of instruction, a precursor lesson will be presented. This precursor lesson, also composed of instruction and item sets, seeks to fill foundational gaps. After completing the precursor, she is then returned back to the on-level lesson for another try. All types of learners, including ELLs, can benefit from the various visual models and manipulatives woven throughout the course, as well as the fact that there are no time limits. Students determine how long they need to spend on each problem and can review instruction at any time.
Now let's take a look at the student experience in Redbird. Students will access Redbird from our Open Learning platform, and for those of you that are familiar with ConnectEd, this should look very familiar. Now you may have a single sign-on solution at your school where students are accessing it through a school portal or a different website, and that's fine. But if not, then the website to access Redbird is, as you can see on the screen, my.mheducation.com/login. And please notice that there's no www in front of the my. It just starts with my. But the page should look, once the sign-on happens, the page should look similar to this. And we're going to take a closer look at this right now as an example. Okay, so let's take a look at what it looks like when a student logs in. Once again, the web page was my.mheducation.com/login. Unless you have a single sign-on solution, you might be accessing it from a different page, but this is typically what most students will experience. So they'll put in their username and password, and then they'll log in, and it will bring them to the page that has a Redbird class. If they have some other products, they may see those as well, like My Math or Everyday Math. We're going to go ahead, and it's pretty easy, just launch the class. And it'll bring us to our unit homepage here, which is 4th grade equivalent fractions. A few things to note on the screen. At the top, we've got the student's name. This is where they'll log out of Redbird. If a student just gets up and doesn't log out, the program will time them out. They'll get a pop-up message after about 5 minutes asking are they still there, and if they don't respond, it'll log them out after another 3 minutes of inactivity. This also shows how much time underneath. You can see how much time they've spent in this particular session. We've got the title of the unit. We've got all of the corresponding lessons. We can see where the students are going to get to play games with these grayed out game pads that will light up once they get to the end of these lessons. So that's a motivator for students to keep moving, so they'll get to play these games. And then there is the start button, which is when they would click, of course, to start or to pick up where they left off in the program. In this case, this student is working on the Show What You Know assessment. A few other things to note on the screen is we've got little birdie here. If a student gets stuck somewhere and they're not sure what the page is asking them to do, they can click on birdie and he will take them through each part of the screen. This is, of course, would be very useful for our younger students or students brand new to the program, and they can end the little tour at any time. We've also got the glossary button at the top, which gives them access to basically every term in the whole program, and a lot of it has visuals, so if they get to something and they're not sure what it is, if they can look it up. And everything has text to speech as well in Redbird, so if they click on the little speaker, it will read it to them.
A customary unit for measuring length. 12 inches equals 1 foot.
And
A pencil is 5 inches long.
And this is across all grade levels K through 7 that they have the text to speech available to them. And to get back to their home page, all they have to do is click on the little icon at the top. Up here at the top is the unit pathway icon. If they click where this page shows their unit and it shows all their lessons, if they click here, it'll show them their pathway actually through the grade level, and it's one of the only places that actually shows their grade level here at the top, 4th grade, and shows the units they're working on or have already worked on and which ones they have left before they get to 5th grade. This also has additional games in which they can play that they'll unlock as they're moving through the course. And to get back to their home page at the bottom is a little bouncing icon. So if one of the younger students ends up on this page, we're hoping that and they don't know how to get back, well, we're hoping they'll see the little bouncing icon down here. And that'll get them back to their home page. And lastly, the View Progress button here at the top is how students will access their own reports and look at them. And we will take a closer look at that in just a minute. Teachers will also have access to this report. So if they click on View Progress in a separate window, it'll open up their student snapshot. This one is a demo one, so it's not a great one to look at. We're going to take a look at a better one here in just a minute.
Okay, now that we've discussed how a student logs in and what it looks like from their unit homepage and some of the features available to them, we're going to take a closer look at one of those features available to them, the aforementioned Student Snapshot Report. And for this, I am once again going to hand the ball off to my colleague Alan Aguilar to describe to you all the features of the Student Snapshot Report.
Hello, my name is Alan Aguilar, and I am an implementation specialist for Alex and Redbird. My role is to support districts, schools, and teachers with their implementations of our programs. Today, I'll be sharing with you how to access one of the most powerful reports that exists in Redbird, the Student Snapshot. I'll cover where to find the Student Snapshot, how to read and interpret the Student Snapshot, and when to use it. The Student Snapshot is a report that will tell you the whole story of a student's journey in Redbird. There are two primary ways that teachers can access a student snapshot for a particular student. The first way to access a student snapshot begins when you're looking at your student list. When I arrive in the Redbird Learning Center, this is what my desktop looks like. I'll go ahead and select my class, and the next screen is called the Student List and Newsfeed. The roster located on the left side of the screen is called the student list. Now, next to each student's name, there are three little icons. The icon right in the middle that says View Reports will take me to the chosen student's individual report, where I'll be able to access the student snapshot. Once I'm looking at the data for individual student, I have an option at the top that says Snapshot. I can go ahead, click on Snapshot, and be able to view the student snapshot for this particular learner. The second way to access the student snapshot is via the class reports, specifically the overview report. After selecting your class, you'll be prompted to the student list and newsfeed. But next to the student list and newsfeed button, you'll see a button that says Class Reports. Click on that button to access the class reports. The class reports includes 8 different reports, but defaults to the overview report, which is the report we need to access the student snapshot. In the overview report, there is a column in the table called Current Location. Once I identify the student whose snapshot I want to review, I just click on that student's current location, and the student snapshot will open in another window. The student snapshot is a detailed report that shows every step a student has taken during their Redbird journey. In the student snapshot, you'll see the blue bars that represent the instruction that students received, what we call Stage 1 Understand. You'll also see how students did when working independently. Each square represents a question that Redbird assigned this specific learner. The squares with the darker shade of green show that a student got that question right on the very first try. The lighter shade of green means the student got that question right on their second try. And I'm sure you know what the red squares mean. Now, I don't expect you to memorize what the colors and symbols mean in this report because you have access to the legend at the top to guide you through this report. The student snapshot also shows the games that students have played and distinguishes between the in-lesson games triggered by Redbird and games that students decided to play on their own accord. You can differentiate them by the words free play in the purple bars. Now, all games are designed to reinforce concepts and provide practice. They are simply a different modality for learning. Games are a break from the challenging intellectual work in Redbird, and they are a great way to refresh while still doing important mathematical work. Now that we have an idea of how to read the student snapshot, let's take a look at a specific lesson to find out how the student is doing. Let's explore this lesson that the student was assigned, Factors and Multiples, which the student started on December 19, 2017. After the student completed instruction, the student moved on to stage 2, where they get the chance to apply what they've learned. This student got the first question right on the second try, the second question right on the first try, and the third question right on the second try. The student moved on to the second set of questions and started off with the wrong answer, which made Redbird expand the set of questions for the student, giving this learner additional opportunities to learn through practice. After the second item set expanded and was completed, the student then moved on to the third item set, which also expanded, but the student's overall performance showed some inconsistencies. Because the learner showed inconsistent proficiency in item set 3, the Redbird algorithm assigned a lesson that addresses the foundation of the factors and multiples lesson. This is what we call precursor lessons. The algorithm finds and fills gaps in foundational understanding. I can tell that this is a precursor lesson because there is a letter P in the beginning. Redbird basically moved the student from the third item set in the factors and multiple lesson and dropped the student to the lesson multiples of 10. Redbird marked this precursor lesson as proficient, which is why you see it in a green background. Redbird marks precursor lessons as non-proficient with a red background. After the student completed the precursor lesson, Redbird moved the student back to the original lesson, where the student decided to play a few games before trying that third set of questions again. This time, the student did a much better job. Overall, once the student completed the assigned item sets, Redbird marked this lesson as proficient, which is why you see the green check mark. One of the biggest confusions from teachers is the assumption that all the red checks mean that the student failed that lesson. Sometimes the red X shows evidence that the learner needs foundational work, so a precursor is assigned. We saw this in the example I just provided. Now, if you find that students are encountering frequent precursor lessons, make sure that the learner is 1, engaged, 2, using all Redbird support, and 3, you may even want to consider changing the student's placement. Redbird also allows teachers to view replays of the student's work by clicking on any of the squares or the instruction bars in the student snapshot. Make sure to watch our video on how to use the student replays. For any student that exhausted all instruction and precursor lessons without demonstrating proficiency within the lesson, I have 2 recommendations, just like you see in this example here. 1, review the lesson with the student using the replays, and maybe do this one-on-one or in a small group. And 2, choose alternative material. You can use the McGraw-Hill Arrive Booster or other materials at your disposal. The calendar on the right side shows the dates that the student worked on Redbird. The darker the shade over a specific date, the more time the student has spent on Redbird. Hovering over any of the shaded dates will give me a quick summary of the student's work for that day. In summary, the student snapshot report helps teachers analyze program use by viewing student performance per lessons assigned, check the frequency and type of precursor lessons assigned, and analyze the students' work in detail. It also allows the teachers to act based on the data that they find. It helps the teachers assess the level of challenge if frequent precursor lessons are assigned. It also helps the teachers note the lessons marked as not proficient and how often material for an on-level lesson is exhausted without the learner showing proficiency in that particular lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and see the Redbird Report user guide for more information.
Now, typically in a live training with teachers, if we have time, this is where we usually like to give the teachers 10 or 15 minutes to actually play around with Redbird as a student, to get the feel for the course as a student, and to ask any questions they may have about the student experience. So I wanted to pull this screen up, so in case you did want to take some time to play around with Redbird, you could do that, or maybe you just bookmark this website to come back to it later. It's also a great place to model Redbird for your students before they actually get on and start working, which is why we've titled the bit.ly, the shortened URL here, Model Redbird, and it's all lowercase, by the way. And what this does, it takes you to our grade-specific activities page where you can pick a grade level and you can sample any part of Redbird, whether it's unit video or instruction or item sets, or any of the math games. You can actually model some of it and play around with it from this page. So it's a great way to model Redbird and to get familiar with Redbird as a student without having to actually log in as a student, because it would actually take, probably a couple hours of work for you to actually get to each of these parts, where you can go directly to them right here from the Redbird activities page. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the student experience in Redbird, now we can move on and take a look at the teacher side of things. So just a quick note, once again, just like the students, you will log in at my.mheducation.com/login, unless your school has a single sign-on solution in which you would log in, probably from a school portal or using a different method. But either way, you should come to the same landing pages. And I've shown examples of two types of landing pages that you might encounter. One of them, if you have a My Math class or Everyday Math or another ConnectEd product, then you would automatically come to the ConnectEd page first. So we can see, once you log in, the arrow here, and you would see your My Math class, and then over to the right in the access your programs box, there are additional programs including Redbird that you would click on, and then that would take you to what we refer to as the My Programs page, where you would launch your Redbird class. So hopefully by the end of the school year, or at least by back to school 2020, next fall, it'll be set up like the students, where you would just go to one page and see everything. Like right now, the students, if they were in your My Math class and Redbird class, would see both of them on the My Programs page. So I apologize for the extra step you have to take. Hopefully soon teachers will go directly to this page as well and be able to access all of their programs from one page. But for now, as of January 27th, 2020, you do have to actually click on the logo in the box here, Redbird, to get to your page, and then you can launch your class, and then that will take you into Redbird Learning Center, which is where all the data lives, and that's what we're going to cover next. And I am once again going to call on some of my colleagues to help me with these reports, so we will dig into those right now. I'll move on. So Redbird Learning Center, once you launch your class, this is where all of your Redbird data is going to live. From your dashboard here, when you first launch, you'll see your students' names over to the left. Notice these students all have a question mark and a pink circle. That means that they have not yet received a placement. So they'll either have a grade level next to their name, or they'll have a question mark. And over to the right, you'll see the student news feed. This is where you'll get some real-time alerts when you're logged in at the same time as your students. So that's key. You have to be logged in when they're logged in, but you'll get some real-time alerts on how they're doing. So in case you're walking around the room and you saw that a student's struggling, like Homer was here, you could go over and offer assistance or just make sure that they're staying on track. And it's just a great way if they know that you can monitor them. Hopefully they're going to work with more fidelity because they know that you can see, at least at a high level, you can see what they're doing. You can see that they're logged in. You can see that they're struggling, which would be identified on the alerts. You can see also when they're progressing or they're accelerating through the positive feedback. And we've actually added another one here that's not on the screenshot, but it includes a games tab over here to the far right, which will be orange. And I think maybe one of the follow-up screens that I have will identify that, so you can see when students are playing games. Because the advanced math games are great, but we want to make sure that they are not spending all their time on games and they're actually working through their lessons and progressing through the units. All right, some of the other identifiers on the screen, you've got the student news feed, of course, you've got the class reports, which is what we'll look at next on how you can get to the actual class data. And this screen also is where you will make student adjustments to grade placements, and we'll look at that in a second as well. So let's take a look, because I do have another screenshot here that does show that games tab of the student news feed. So I think it's important for you to see that. There we go. So you can see a little better shot here of all of the tabs up here, and you can filter by these tabs as well. So some teachers will actually pull this up on their smartboard or their projector, and they'll filter by, I would never recommend just leaving them all filtered because you don't want to call a student out for struggling, but a lot of teachers will click on the positive tabs to try to motivate. Students will want to see their name up there, so they'll work harder because they want their name to pop up there. Or sometimes teachers, if they feel like they're having a problem with students playing games too much, they'll click on the games tab. So right up there on the big screen, students' name would pop up if they're playing one of these games, and they're less likely to excessively play games if they know their teacher's going to see it in real time.
Okay, so let's take a look now at how to make a grade placement adjustment. So once you log in, you may come to this page where you might have some additional programs, but to get your Redbird, you just come over here to the Access Your Programs box over here and find Redbird and click on it. And now you should be able to launch your class. And you might have multiple classes to choose from if you teach multiple classes. If not, then you'll come straight to your roster. And let's say here that we wanted to make an adjustment to my grade level here. All we'd have to do is come over here to the right to this little Edit Student icon and click on it. Then we're going to come over here to the pop-up window and choose Grade Placement. Now we're going to select Edit Details, and we're going to select why we're making the adjustment. I'm just going to put because it's too hard. And then I'm going to come down here to the Select New Starting Point menu and click on the arrow to open it up. And this is where you can either reset the course placement activity and make the student take the kickoff challenge again, or you can place the students at the beginning or middle of any grade level. So let's say the 4th grade was too difficult for me and I wanted to move myself to the beginning of 3rd. There's a little warning message just letting you know that if the student had worked on this grade level in previous years, they would run into some of the same content. But then all you have to do is hit Save Changes and then exit out of the pop-up window, and now you'll notice that my grade placement was changed from 4th to 3rd, and the next time that I log in, I will pick up at the beginning or start at the beginning of 3rd grade. Now I know it doesn't tell you a whole lot when you're making the decision on whether or not to whether you should where you're going to put them, if you put them at the beginning or middle of a grade level. So I'm going to highlight that in the next slide from our course outline, which you'll have access to, that will allow you to pull up the all of the content in the course and see exactly where you're going to move them if you were to place them at the beginning or middle of any grade level. You know where they're going to start and what would come right after that, or what they're going to skip if you move them from, you know, the beginning to the middle of one grade level. You'd know what content they were going to skip. So we'll look at that next.
Okay, so I wanted to show you the course outline because I just mentioned where you could use the course outline to identify the beginning and middle placement of each grade level. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can access our Redbird resource Padlet, where you can view or download this course outline, or just you can just keep it on the Padlet and just go back and look at it as needed. So, but you can see here that it's got all the grade levels and all the units, and I've circled here where it identifies the beginning and middle of each unit. So if you were to place a student, you know exactly where they're going to be, what their content, the content they're about to work on is, or if you're moving them down, you would see what they would, or if you're moving them forward, I guess it'd be a better way to put it. You could see what content they would be skipping and make sure that you're comfortable with that. So this is a course outline, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the Redbird resource Padlet. Okay, so as we move into discussing the class reports, I thought this would be a good time to mention the report user guide. Alan talked about it in a couple of his segments of this presentation. He would mention it at the end, and I just wanted to let you know that I hadn't forgot about it, and we're going to point it out as well when we get to the Redbird resource Padlet, where I just mentioned you'll also be able to access the course outline. So as you're going through these reports, just don't feel like you have to take a ton of notes, because we're going to give you access to this report user guide, which is going to have all of this for you. And the Redbird resource Padlet is also going to have it's going to have all the videos kind of split up into modules for you too, so you can go back and review them in case you forget anything that's in this video. So alrighty, so we're going to look at the general class reports here, and I'm going to call on my colleague Christina McCauley to do that for us. She has a much more pleasant voice than me, so hopefully you will enjoy it. And so now we are moving on to class reports.
Hi, I'm Christina McCauley, and I'm a personalized learning specialist. I help educators utilize Redbird Mathematics with high-quality instruction to support success for all students in math. Today, I'll be showing you how to use the general report features within Redbird Mathematics. These features are available across many reports. Once you have mastered these features, you will be ready to dig into individual reports. When I arrive at the Redbird Learning Center, this is what my desktop looks like. To begin, in the center of your screen, you see a blue rectangle. Click here to select the name of your school. If you are associated with more than one school, this is where you can change sites. Now you see green rectangles. These identify all of the classes associated with your account. Hover over the name of the class you would like to access. Today, I'm going to access Agire Math 1. Now you see a screen with student names down the left side. This is the student list and news feed. In the gray bar near the top of the screen, there are 3 tabs. Click the middle tab named Class Reports. This is the overview report where we will spend the remainder of our time. There are 8 different reports listed here. Just below the different reports, you will see a space to customize the date ranges. You can enter specific dates by using the calendar that pops up, or highlight and type in a specific date. There are also predefined date ranges you can click. Once you have selected the date range, this will remain when changing between reports. Regardless of the report you are looking at, you will see two options for exporting data. You can either print or download as a CSV file using the icons found here. When looking at how the data is displayed to you, you are able to sort the columns by ascending or descending order. We're going to click on the class level to see how it changes. If you would like to see a snapshot of the student, simply click on the student's name. If you would like to see a snapshot of the student's current location, click on the lesson listed in the current location column here. In order to log out of your account, simply click on the red bird in the upper right-hand corner or close the browser window. So we talked about the general report features. Thank you for watching, and I hope this information will make it easier for you to utilize all of the great data about your students in Redbird Mathematics. See the Redbird Report User's Guide for more information. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darlene Messer. I'm a personalized learning specialist. I work with districts and schools to create personalized learning environments that support the individual needs of all of their learners. Today, I'll be showing you how to use the class reports about progress to analyze learners' work across all 8 grade levels within Redbird Mathematics. Use the progress report to know areas of success and to identify learners who have exhausted program material without showing proficiency. When I arrive in the Redbird Learning Center, also known as the RLC, this is what my desktop looks like. I choose my school and my class, continue to my class reports. Here I find my progress report. Select the date range. All the information is filtered by date range. The default date range is the last 7 days. The histogram shows how many learners have worked on each lesson in a grade level and their performance. The green bars show evidence of proficiency. The red bars indicate learners who have exhausted all the material for a lesson without showing evidence of proficiency. Click into a grade to find out more detail. I'm going to go on ahead and click in grade 3. First, scroll horizontally over the top of the graph to see lesson tiles in each domain. Understand multiplication, concepts of area, patterns in multiplication, understand division, use mixed operations to solve problems, fraction concepts. Let's say you are a 4th grade teacher getting ready to teach division. So you look at the 3rd grade lesson to see if your learners have completed the division lessons and whether they show strength in these foundations. The red bars indicate learners who have exhausted all the material for the division lesson equal groups with tape diagrams. When I click into it, the report sorts these lessons into 3 proficiency groups: those students not proficient, those students who are proficient, and those students who have not attempted. This is a great way to group learners into homogeneous groups for instruction or enrichment on specific math content. Here we see Lillian and Rosario have worked on equal groups with tape diagrams and struggled. Daniel, Dee, Pari, and Tan show evidence of proficiency with those ideas. Now you can plan how to differentiate instruction when you work on 4th grade division to be sure to appropriately scaffold Lillian and Rosario. In some classes, you'll find that so many learners have weak foundation that you'll want to front-load the unit with quick activation of prior knowledge or reteaching to provide access to success for more learners. Redbird keeps all data on learners, so the more learners use it, even over multiple years, the more useful data will be available for this kind of planning. We talked about how to use the class progress report to view student work across all grade levels and use the data to impact classroom instruction. Thanks for watching. See the Redbird Report user guide for more information.
Hi, I'm Casey Owen, a personalized learning specialist here at McGraw-Hill. I'm a former elementary teacher who used Redbird Mathematics in my very own classroom. Now here at McGraw-Hill, I help teachers and administrators learn how Redbird Mathematics can help meet the personalized needs of all students and help prepare students for algebra readiness. Today, I'll be showing you how to use the benchmark report to help improve and check implementation fidelity with Redbird Mathematics. The benchmark report is a visualization of usage metrics against implementation recommendations. I'll show you how to check usage. You'll also learn how to intervene with learners who are not meeting goals. You'll ensure learner success by making sure they are placed appropriately and are using learning supports. We're going to check the benchmark report after learners have been working in the program a week and then weekly thereafter until all learners are meeting usage goals. When I arrive in the Redbird Learning Center, or the RLC, this is what my desktop looks like. First, I'll choose my school, and then my class. Now, I'm going to be looking at data for the whole class, so I'm going to go up to this gray bar and choose Class Report. Then I have a list of horizontal reports here, and I'm going to choose Benchmark. Next, I want to see data from just 1 week, so I'm going to adjust the display period. You can either use the calendar or you can type in your own custom dates, as I'm doing here. First, let's check to see who has not met the goal of at least 60 minutes in the program. Up top, we see the whole class and we see the number of students who meet each of those different benchmarks. When we scroll down, we see a breakdown of all students. So we're going to sort here to see who spent at least minutes in the program. When we sort by 30 to 59, we see that one student, Edwin Hamilton, is in this category. We could do the same for the other categories. This is a demonstration account, so we're just going to focus on Edwin. And here we're going to consider some questions. Why did Edward not complete the 60 minutes that we were looking for? Did he not have enough time in my teaching schedule? Did he not use the time that he had wisely? Are there anything that's hindering him from getting that time in? There are a variety of options in terms of how we can increase the time, including station rotation, computer lab, and making Redbird available to him before or after school. Next, let's check to see if the students are completing at least 2 lessons per week. So first, we're going to sort by 60 to 89 minutes. Those are our students who are meeting that time recommendation. And over on the right-hand side, we see that all of those students met that 2 lesson a week goal. Because this is a demo account, all of the students who worked in the program completed that number of lessons. But if they had not, there are a few other things we'd want to check. We'd want to check their placement using the placement report. We'd also want to be sure that the learner is using the program supports that are built in in an appropriate way. We do that by looking at their snapshot and then the replay feature within the snapshot. To find out more about the snapshot and the placement reports, check out our report user guide for more information. So today we talked about how to use the benchmark report to check and improve implementation fidelity of the Redbird Mathematics program. You learned how to check the data and how to intervene to improve the implementation if needed. Thanks for watching, and see the Redbird report user guide for more information.
Hi, I'm Janet Pittock, Learning Science Architect for Redbird. My goal is to help learners understand and enjoy mathematics. Today I'll be showing you how to use the placement report to check where your learners are working within Redbird Mathematics. This report is an easy way to see where all of your learners are currently working in Redbird Math. When I arrive in the Redbird Learning Center, also called RLC, this is what my desktop looks like. I choose my school and my class, and I continue to my class reports. Here, among the list of reports, I find the placement report. My students are listed here. I can see the last time the students worked in Redbird. I can sort to see when the student worked, how recently they worked, or how long ago they worked. I can also sort by current on-level lesson. This shows the on-level placement, not the precursor lesson the student might be working on in order to prepare foundations for success. This is a place to look to see whether your learners are moving through the program appropriately, or whether you want to dig deeper to find out what you need to do to support their learning. At some point, you might want to question the last placement of the student, and you can see the report user guide on the use of this placement report to analyze and decide on actions regarding placement. In summary, you use the placement report to review where the learner is currently working. And then you can act on that data to work with the student around how to use Redbird, or to decide that their placement is incorrect and edit that student. Thanks for watching, and see the Redbird Math Report user guide for more information.
Hello, my name is Russ McSwain, and I am a Personalized Learning Implementation Specialist for McGraw-Hill Education. I know that is quite the long title, but basically what it means is that I have a great job. I get to work with outstanding educators such as yourselves, and I get to work with great programs like Redbird Mathematics. Today I'll be showing you how to locate the Standards Proficiency Report within Redbird Mathematics, and how to use this report to review class and student progress. The Standards Proficiency Report displays evidence of proficiency for Common Core standards or state-specific standards. So let's go ahead and take a look at this great report. Now, once you are logged into Redbird Learning Center, you should be directed straight to your class dashboard, which has your student list over here to the left and your student news feed in the middle. The Standards Proficiency Report is located in our class reports, so we're going to scroll all the way up to the top and select Class Reports. Now, by default, we're going to be on the Class Overview Report, but if we scroll all the way over to the right, we will see the tab for Standards Proficiency, and we'll click on it now. Now notice that the start date automatically changed to August 1st, 2018. So it will always change to the first day of August in whatever the current year is, which in this case is 2018. Now I'm going to change the year by clicking on it, clicking on the year, scrolling down to 2017, and then selecting the 1st of August. I'm going back to August 1st, 2017 because I know that this specific class worked during that time, and I would like to see all of their data since the very first time they logged in. Now immediately we are prompted here by Select All Grade Levels of Interest. K1 and 6 and 7 are grayed out since there was no work completed at these grade levels by anyone in this class. So that quickly allows us to see that we don't even have to click on those grade levels because there's no data to see. Now we can click on any of the other grade levels, which we will, and we can click on multiple grade levels across multiple domains, and that's going to give us all of the data here. And we can see all of the corresponding standards that go along with these domains. We can see very quickly that there wasn't very much work done in grade level 3. So I'm going to deselect grade level 3. Most of the work was done at grade level 2 and grade level 4. And since this is a 4th grade class, I'm going to deselect grade level 2 and we're going to focus on the work done in grade level 4. Now the corresponding standards, if you hover over them and scroll all the way down to where the I is in the orange circle, it'll identify the associated Redbird math lessons. So these are the lessons that correspond with each of these standards. In this case, place value relationships, and the numbers alongside it basically just tell us the grade level 4, the unit number, unit 1, and the lesson number, lesson 2. All Redbird work done on these standards will be displayed on this report. Of course, the more students work on Redbird, the more info that will be available. We can click on any of these standards, which will allow us to group students into each of the categories identified on our legend over here to the right. The first category is did not show proficiency, as highlighted in red. The second category showed partial proficiency, as highlighted in blue. The third category showed proficiency, is highlighted in green, and the fourth one, in progress, is highlighted in purple. In progress simply means the students have started working on the standard, on the lesson that corresponds with the standard, but there's not enough data just yet to identify their level of proficiency. And then of course blank means they have not yet worked on any lesson that corresponds with any standard. Notice that when we sorted this standard, that it put all the students that did not show proficiency at the top. So Chase, Lucy, and Salvador did not show proficiency over this standard. Being able to sort these standards across multiple grade levels and multiple domains is a great way to identify class and student readiness for work in particular domains of mathematics. It will also help you as a teacher plan lessons or experiences for all students or for subsets of students to support their learning on these identified standards. If you'd like to print this report, you can do so in one of two ways. You can either print it as a CSV file, which would open it up in a spreadsheet in columns and rows, or you can basically do a print screen here by selecting the printer. You should also have the ability to save it as a PDF if you'd like. Now let's review what we've learned in today's video. So today we discussed Redbird Mathematics Standard Proficiency Report. We discussed how to locate the Standards Proficiency Report in Redbird Learning Center. We identified how to view class and student progress on multiple grade levels and across multiple domains. We learned how to identify the specific Redbird lessons associated with each standard. And finally, we learned how to sort columns of standards, which grouped our students into one of 5 categories. Did not show proficiency, showed partial proficiency, showed proficiency, were in progress, and finally has not yet started. I'd like to thank you for watching today's video and for being an advocate for Redbird Mathematics. If you'd like more information on Redbird reports, we'd recommend checking out our Redbird Report User Guide. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.
Okay, so we've looked at the student experience and now the teacher experience in Redbird. Now let's discuss a little bit about our recommendations for usage. First off, I'd like to throw out there that the ultimate goal each week should be 2 lessons completed per week. The average amount of time it typically takes to complete 2 lessons per week is somewhere in the 60 to 90 minute range. So we're looking at 2 to 3 20 or 30 minute sessions per week. Probably with kindergarten through 2nd grade, 60 minutes should be adequate to complete the 2 lessons per week. 3rd grade and above, you probably want to get as close to that 90 minutes as possible to ensure that they're completing the 2 lessons per week. And then we have the correct on first attempt percentage, which is a key indicator in Redbird as to the student's placement. It's that zone of proximal development, that productive struggle range, that we're looking for, and that falls in the 65 to 75% range. Now this is going to vary for each student, and it doesn't mean if a student is at 55 or 60% that you have to manually adjust them or reset the course placement activity. It's simply a gauge for you to keep an eye on in case you notice that it corresponds with students receiving a lot of precursor lessons, failing a lot of lessons, where you might want to take a look at grade placement adjustment. And it works the other way too. If you have students who have an extremely high percent correct on first attempt, 90, 95%, then they're probably getting 95 or 100% correct overall. And so that's where you'll want to keep an eye on it the other way too. We don't want the program to be too easy or too hard for the students. We want that nice sweet spot for them. And then there's the average lessons per week we're looking for, 2 lessons per week, in an attempt to get the students through a grade level by the time your standardized testing comes up. Next, I wanted to share with you the Redbird resource Padlet that you've heard me reference several times during this video. And to give you the link, we made a shortened URL. You don't have to put in www, you can just put in bit.ly/RBMA 2020. So it's Redbird Math 2020, all lowercase here, and that it is case sensitive, and that will bring you live to our Redbird resource Padlet, and I'm going to pull it up live now and show you a few of the items that are on it. All right, so we are looking live here at the Redbird resource Padlet for the 2019-2020 school year. Basically, this is one-stop shopping for everything Redbird. We've got it sectioned off by columns that'll hopefully make it easier for you to navigate. Feel free to share this with parents as well if they are interested in what Redbird is all about. You can see the first column, what is Redbird Math? It's got a link to our overview video. There's also an overview document, kind of a brochure on Redbird. There's some additional information, including a link to our activities page where you could, I mentioned that earlier, where you can go and play around with the course at different grade levels. And then there's some system recommendations as well, as far as devices that work best with Redbird and browsers, and will come in handy for parents using it at home just to make sure they have what they need. The curriculum information has that course outline that I mentioned earlier, so you can pull it up at any time and view all of the units, all of the lessons, the beginning and midpoint of each grade level. Get back to, we also have the Common Core standards alignments with Redbird. There are some state-specific ones too you might check out to see if your state has its own alignment with Redbird, in case your standards differ from Common Core. There is a link to the STEM themes and projects, so you can actually go on and play around with a few of the projects to familiarize yourself with it before your students start running into those projects and working on them. And there's a place where you can sample the math games as well. There's some Redbird implementation tips under the implementation column, including best practices and an implementation planning form. There is a presentation very similar to what we went through today that you could view or share with your colleagues. And a welcome to Redbird email that has some additional links on it with some information. So Redbird Math Day 1, this is an important column where you can share this 8-minute video with your students before they even log in. I'd recommend using this along with the Redbird activities page to model as 2 activities you could do prior to the students logging in for the first time to make sure that they understand what is expected of them. And of course, you could add in any expectations you might have for your class as well at this time. And there's just some getting started with Redbird videos, which are very similar to what we went over today, just kind of in more module form. And the same with the reports. Here's that Redbird report user guide that was mentioned in all of the videos today. So that's something you'll definitely want to check out. It's got all the report information and some additional report information that we didn't go over during this training. We will have a video on with a deeper dive into some of the Redbird data in a follow-up webinar, and that some of that information is also covered in the user guide. So that is pretty much it. There's under Redbird support, there's information, there's an FAQs page, and also technical support, how you can get a hold of us if you need us, and a few additional videos on how to make grade placement assignments and some of the other things that we talked about in the video. So hopefully this page will have everything you need, but if not, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And we appreciate you watching this video today, and we're going to end this with a video from a school, and specifically a teacher who has used Redbird with great fidelity, and hopefully it will get you excited about using the course, being able to see how this dynamic teacher has used Redbird in his classrooms on a daily basis. So thanks again.
My name is Dean Deaver. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Monroe Elementary in Riverside, California.
My name is Tiana Lanou, and I'm the personalized learning coach at Monroe Elementary.
My name is Dr. Tasia Churchwell, and I'm the principal here at Monroe Elementary School in Riverside.
We as a society have this mentality that either you're good at math or you're not good at math, and that's just how you're born with it. My goal as a 19-year veteran teacher is getting that mindset to change. So before Redbird, it was just really a lot of trying to find different things here and there, whether it be paper versions or booklets, even some online programs that I've tried. They just weren't keeping the students engaged, and it wasn't at the right rigor. My whole goal is to get my students the resources they need. And so looking at Redbird was exactly that. It found out exactly what level they were at and helped them move at their own pace.
I was first at a fourth grade level, now I'm in a fifth grade level.
You did really good. If they were struggling in a certain concept, you know, Redbird kicks them back to practice at a level that they need to understand that skill. Assessment drives the instruction. So the assessment that it provides for me, the data it gives, I can now adjust either my rotations, my small groups, my overall instruction. That helps me out quite a bit.
I remind myself that it doesn't matter if I don't get it right, it's just that I'm learning.
Deep down inside, they realize it's challenging, but they know it's good for them. And it's challenging in a way that it's not overwhelming.
I've never been able to do decimals. It's teaching me how to do decimals, adding decimals, subtracting them, multiplying them. It's teaching me many different things.
For them having that where I'm at, the path that I need to go on, that's personalized for them, really makes a difference in them taking that ownership and knowing, okay, this is where I'm at, this is the growth that I've made in a week.
All right, now you know what you're gonna do next?
They love getting on Redbird. They love the games, the different activities that they can get to, and it really helps them to get to the core. So, and it also helps with the personalized learning because they can be on Redbird independently while the teacher is working with another group on some other core instruction.
With personalized learning, I feel like you're taking that, you're not taking the teacher out of the equation, but you're really opening those walls. So these students are not, they're not coming to school now to be taught. They're coming to school to learn. They're using all the resources, the technology that they have to learn outside of the classrooms.
Because really, that's what I want my students to be. I want them to be learners. I want them to be problem solvers. And this is just another aspect of doing it, and it's just a fun way. We'll call it math, great. But in life, we want them to be learners and problem solvers. Yep.
This one I did put my plan.
All right, so you still need to do the plan, that one, right? I'm seeing them engaged more. I'm seeing them wanting to just be okay with trying it. And I think that's the biggest part. Now, in terms of scores, that's gonna happen. And I'm already seeing the students approaching problems differently than just the standard algorithm or just the standard, hey, I'm just gonna guess. They're willing to actually put some time and effort into it because they learned that from Redbird.